comments. If you are having technical difficulties, please use the chat box to type in your issue and our team will attempt to support. We're going to give folks just a little more time to join, but we will begin the meeting promptly in a couple of minutes and end by 8 p.m. at the latest. Thank you. Give folks a few more minutes to filter in here, and then we'll be underway. Well, it got very quiet all of a sudden. Thank you.
So Leon, there's a couple other conversations going on, so I just muted us, and I'll unmute as soon as I need to.
All righty. Welcome to the public meeting regarding the Alcan Land Port of Entry Expansion and Modernization Draft Environmental Impact Statement. This meeting is being recorded, and your audio will be muted until the public comment session later in the meeting, when you'll have a chance to provide comments or ask questions. If you have any technical difficulties, please feel free to type your issue in the chat box, and our team will attempt to support. We'll begin the meeting in 2 minutes and end by 8 p.m. at the latest. Thank you. Hello. On behalf of the U.S. General Services Administration, or GSA, we would like to welcome you to this public meeting for the proposed expansion and modernization of the Alcan, Alaska Land Port of Entry, or LPOE. GSA, U.S. Customs and Border Protection, or CBP, and GSA's contractor, Solve, have prepared a draft environmental impact statement, or EIS, in accordance with the requirements of the National Environmental Policy Act, referred to as NEPA for short. GSA is the lead project agency for this EIS, and the native village of Northway is a cooperating agency. My name is Leon Kolinkevich. I am a contractor with Solve who is supporting GSA in the development of the draft EIS. Presenting with me today from GSA will be Aaron Evanson, in your presence there. The capital project, hello, Aaron. The capital project manager for the proposed Alcan LPOE expansion and modernization project. Kevin Ebert from Solve will be helping with the slides and monitoring the chat feature. We thank you for taking the time to participate in today's public meeting, and we welcome your comments on the draft EIS. We will give everyone a chance to submit their comments at the end of the presentation, and we will wrap up the meeting by 8 p.m. at the latest. Thank you. Next slide, please, Kevin. Before we proceed, there are a few housekeeping items to cover. Today's meeting is being recorded. By remaining in the meeting, attendees agree to being recorded. If you do not agree, we ask that you leave the meeting at this time. In the Zoom platform, you will see a toolbar at the bottom of your screen that allows you to send a chat to the presenters. Feel free to send us a chat if you encounter any technical issues. If you would like to view closed captioning during the meeting, click the Show Captions button on the bottom of your screen. Note that all participants will be muted until the public comment session later in the meeting. At that time, we will provide instructions for how to submit comments on the draft EIS. A recording of this Zoom meeting with closed captioning, along with a copy of this presentation, will be made available within the next 2 weeks on the project website, which is linked on this slide, www.gsa.gov/Alcan, ALCAN. This link will also be posted in the chat. The project website can also be found via a web search using the search terms, quote, GSA Alcan LPOE, unquote, and clicking on a GSA associated web link. Next slide. In carrying out our responsibilities under NEPA, GSA is committed to ensuring proper consideration of the potential effects of any proposed actions on the natural and human environment. The purpose of tonight's meeting is to receive public input on the draft EIS. This presentation will include a description of NEPA, the key federal law relevant to this project, and provide details on the EIS timeline. We'll then provide background information and a project overview that includes the purpose and need for the proposed project and a description of the alternatives under consideration. Next, we'll briefly summarize the anticipated effects on the resources analyzed in the draft EIS, and then discuss the EIS's next steps and overall project schedule. At the end of the presentation, we'll provide instructions on how to submit your comments on the draft EIS and then begin the public comment session. If you'd like additional details on the project or want to access the draft EIS, we encourage you to visit the project website, www.gsa.gov/Alcan, ALCAN. Next slide, Kevin. NEPA, or the National Environmental Policy Act, is a federal law that requires agencies to evaluate the potential effects of proposed actions on the environment before taking those actions, to involve the public in the decision-making process, and to document the anticipated environmental effects of their proposed actions. NEPA does not mandate any particular decision, but it does ensure that the public is engaged in the assessment and that GSA's decisions are appropriately informed. GSA has prepared a draft EIS per NEPA requirements to document the proposed effects from the proposed changes to the Alcan LPOE. The current draft EIS public review period is an important opportunity for you to view or review the draft EIS and provide input on the adequacy, methodology, and assumptions used for the analysis. Your comments will be taken into consideration by GSA during our decision-making process and will be included as part of the project record. Next slide. GSA initiated the EIS process by publishing a notice of intent in the Federal Register on April 7th, 2023. The notice of intent explained that GSA would complete an EIS and described how the public could be involved in the process. GSA conducted public scoping between April 7th and May 15th, 2023, and held a virtual public scoping meeting on April 26th, 2023. GSA used the information received during the scoping process to develop the draft EIS. GSA analyzed the impacts from the proposed alternatives and documented those findings in the draft EIS. We are currently in the public comment period for the draft EIS. GSA posted announcements in the Anchorage Daily News, Delta Wind Journal, Fairbanks Daily News Miner, GSA website, on social media, and published a notice of availability, or NOA, on February 26, 2024, to initiate the draft EIS public comment period. The draft EIS is available for public review for 45 days through April 11th, 2024. The final EIS is slated to be published in August 2024. GSA will notify the public via the Federal Register and GSA's website when the final EIS is available for public review. NEPA requires a 30-day waiting period after publication of the final EIS before the agency can complete its Record of Decision, or ROD, R-O-D. The ROD explains the agency's decision, describes the alternatives that were considered, and discusses plans for mitigation and monitoring if needed. The Alcan EIS ROD is anticipated to be published on September 30th, 2024. Issuance of the ROD signifies the end of the EIS process. I will now turn it over to Aaron Evanson, GSA's Capital Project Manager for the proposed Alcan LPOE project, to discuss the background, purpose and need, and alternatives. And next slide, Ken.
Thank you, Leon. Thanks, Leon. I appreciate that. The LPOE is approximately 200 miles southeast of Fairbanks, Alaska, on the U.S.-Canada border. It is bordered on the LPOE operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and processes privately owned vehicles, or POVs, buses, and traffic.
Sorry, Aaron, you're coming in and out for a little bit for us. Would you mind repeating that last portion?
Whoa. The Alcan LPOE consists of 12 buildings on a 55-acre campus. All buildings that for employee board.
Kevin, do you want to advance to the next slide?
Yeah. Is Aaron coming in and out for anyone, or is that just on my end?
No, for me too.
Okay.
Me as well.
Sorry, folks. Can you hear me? Can you hear me okay?
Yep, you're coming through now.
It's been in and out a bit, Aaron.
Aaron, you might want to try turning your
Okay,
video
I'm going
on.
to stop video. I'm going to stop video, and I'm hoping that helps a little bit with the connect.
Yeah. Let's try that.
Just did. Is that helping at all?
Seems to.
Okay. All right, so let's start back with the facilities. The Alcan LPOE consists of 12 buildings on a 55-acre campus. All buildings, except for employee housing, are connected via utilidor, which is an underground insulated corridor used to connect utilities and transit. The service buildings and employee housing. The main port building houses CBP inspection and enforcement operations and includes 2 vehicle garages. The structure has an attached canopy extending over 2 covered POV inspection lanes, as well as 1 uncovered inspection lane. Incoming traffic passes on the east side of the building, and outbound traffic passes on the west side. The main port building also has 2 primary inspection booths, 1 covered attached, detached. All interior spaces are fully utilized with no room for expansion. The service buildings include a main service building, which contains centralized heating, water, power generation, and electricity distribution for the campus, and a wastewater pump building, which houses pumps and infrastructure for sanitary sewage collection and distribution to the 3 adjacent wastewater lagoons and overflow leach field. The remaining buildings are residential housing for CBP officers. Next slide, please. The purpose of the proposed project is to expand and modernize the Alcan LPOE to support CBP's mission. Accomplishing this purpose would increase operational efficiency, security, sustainability, and safety at the Alcan LPOE. More specifically, the goals of the project are to increase vehicle inspection processing capabilities and efficiencies at the Alcan LPOE, to modernize facilities to accommodate current and future demands and implementation of border security initiatives, to expand the LPOE to accommodate anticipated staffing needs, improve the comfort and safety of the Alcan LPOE for employees of the LPOE and the transiting public, and to reduce the facility's carbon footprint. The need for the proposed project is to address existing LPOE deficiencies. The current layout of inspection areas does not allow for optimal traffic flow and presents employee and public safety and security concerns. Large helicopters do not have a dedicated landing area at the LPOE in the nearby Tetland Wildlife Refuge parking area for inspection. There is also no dedicated firing range on site, requiring personnel to travel to Fairbanks for weapons training and qualifications. Finally, existing LPOE infrastructure is outdated and in need of sustainability and energy efficiency updates. This project would align LPOE operations with up-to-date land port design standards that meet CBP's operational requirements. Next slide, please. GSA's proposed action is to replace the existing Alcan LPOE facility with a new facility. Most improvements would occur at the existing LPOE site, but there is potential for expansion to the south of the site. The new facilities would include a modernized main port building with enhanced holding and interview capabilities that meet CBP's security standards, dual-purpose inspection lanes to allow for flexibility of inspection operations, enclosed inspection spaces for secondary inspection of personnel and commercial vehicles, updated residential campus separation from LPOE operations with security infrastructure to minimize risk to resident personnel and their families, as well as an on-site helipad and firing range. All new construction would be net zero ready and would be designed to achieve Leadership in Energy and Environmental Design, or LEED, certification. Next slide, please. GSA identified one alternative action item, alternative one, that meets the proposed project's purpose and need. Under alternative one, work would be phased to minimize impacts to LPOE operations. Alternative one would involve acquiring approximately 2.5 acres for site expansion, demolishing existing facilities, regrading the site, and constructing new facilities in the expanded area. The proposed property acquisition will be discussed in more detail on the next slide. New facilities to be constructed under alternative one would include a main port building, housing units, recreation buildings, inspection booths and canopies, traffic lanes, firing range, helipad, and indoor and outdoor parking. Per CEQ regulations, GSA also analyzed a no-action alternative, which evaluates the effects of if GSA continued to operate the LPOE under current conditions, i.e. the status quo. No land acquisition, demolition, or construction would occur, and minor repairs, routine maintenance, and operations of the existing LPOE would continue. The no-action alternative would not meet the purpose or the need of the proposed project. Next slide, please. This map shows the existing LPOE boundary in red and the proposed expansion of the LPOE boundary in orange. Ownership of lands surrounding the project site are denoted in the figure as well. The formal property boundary has not been surveyed since the original acquisition for the LPOE, the Alcan LPOE land from the U.S. Department of the Interior. GSA would complete land surveys as part of the planning phase of the project. I will now turn it back over to Leon from the SOLVE team for a discussion of how each alternative would impact the natural and human environment.
Thank you, Aaron. And next slide, please, Kevin. The draft EIS evaluated 12 resource areas that were likely to be impacted by the proposed project. Land use, geology, topography and soils, water resources, biological resources, cultural and historic resources, environmental justice, socioeconomics, recreation, visual resources, noise and vibrations, solid and hazardous waste, and climate change. Each of these resource areas will be described later. For each resource area evaluated in the draft EIS, analysis is split into two main sections: the quote-unquote affected environment and the quote-unquote environmental consequences. The affected environment analysis includes a description of existing conditions. Resources analyzed and dismissed from further analysis due to low likelihood of impacts include transportation and traffic, utilities, and air quality. Next slide. The environmental consequences analysis evaluates the potential impacts that may occur to each resource area because of the proposed project. Impacts to resource areas can be adverse or beneficial and can vary in magnitude or how noticeable the change is. By duration, or how long impacts will persist after project completion, and by extent, or the geographic area in which effects would take place. All impacts are adverse unless otherwise noted as beneficial. The no action alternative provides a baseline for comparison of impacts to each resource area with and without project implementation. For each of the 12 resource areas, we provide a summary of the potential impacts under the action and no action alternatives, as well as any mitigation or best management practices, or BMPs, that would be implemented to lessen potential impacts. Please refer to the draft EIS for greater detailed discussions on the existing conditions, impact analysis, and BMPs for each resource area. As a reminder, the draft EIS can be accessed from GSA's project website. Next slide, Kevin, please. Excuse me. Under alternative 1, there would be adverse, local, long-term, minor effects to land use for the Tetlin National Wildlife Refuge resource area overall, because conserved habitat land would be converted to developed land, which would decrease the value of the land for habitat use. Under the no action alternative, there would be no effects on land use. Next slide. Under alternative 1, there would be local, long-term minor effects to geology due to excavation and blasting activities. There would be site-specific long-term and moderate effects on topography due to the grading and leveling activities, which would flatten and eliminate the topographic feature of the hillside. There would be local, short and long-term, moderate effects on soils from erosion, compaction, loss of natural soil horizons from grading, and covering of soils with impervious surfaces. There would be no effects on permafrost. Under the no action alternative, there would be no effects to geology and topography, and there would be site-specific, long-term, and negligible effects to soils from regular maintenance activities. Specific BMPs include reducing the effects of blasting, disposing of excavated rock should it contain hazardous materials, constructing a hillside retaining wall following National Pollutant Discharge Elimination System program guidelines, and developing Stormwater Pollution Prevention Plan, or SWPPP, to document additional construction BMPs to be used. Next slide, Kevin. Under alternative 1, there would be local, short-term, minor effects to stormwater and surface water during construction-related activities. and local, long-term, negligible effects to stormwater and surface water during LPOE operations. Under the no action alternative, there would be local, long-term, negligible effects to water resources. BMPs would be implemented in accordance with the Alaska Construction General Permit, and a stormwater pollution prevention plan would be developed to document the BMPs to be used on the construction site. The BMPs would minimize impacts to water resources and would include erosion control strategies, proper chemical storage, and immediate cleanup of spills. Next slide, please. Under alternative 1, construction would have local, short-term, negligible effects to biological resources due to the destruction and removal of native plant species. However, there would be beneficial, local, negligible effects to vegetation from native replanting after construction activities. There would be local, short and long-term, negligible effects to wildlife due to the removal of minimal available habitat and disturbances from noise and activity during construction and operation of the expanded port. There would be local, long-term, moderate effects on wetlands if 0.3 acres of wetlands were filled. There would be local, short-term, and negligible effects on migratory birds due to displacement from habitats surrounding the LPOE during construction, and there would be local, long-term, negligible effects to migratory birds due to operation, traffic, and routine maintenance disturbance. Under the no action alternative, there would be local, long-term, negligible effects to biological resources due to noise and other disturbances to wildlife from operations and routine maintenance activities occurring at the existing port. There is a suite of construction BMPs and mitigation measures that would be used to minimize effects to biological resources, including timing site clearing and other construction activities to minimize disturbance to migratory birds. Next slide, please, Kevin. Under alternative 1, there would be local, short-term minor effects on the setting of the Alaska Military Highway telephone and telegraph line due to noise and visual disturbance from construction activities. Adverse or beneficial, local, long-term, and major effects could occur if a cultural resource is discovered during ground disturbing activities. Due to the level of past ground disturbance, it is unlikely that archaeological resources encountered would be in their original context, so local, short-term, and negligible effects would likely occur in the area of analysis. There would be local, short-term minor effects on subsistence activities due to increased noise, emissions, and visual intrusions during demolition and construction activities. There would be local, long-term, moderate effects on subsistence activities due to continued access restrictions to traditional and modern fishing camps in the vicinity of the existing LPOE. However, GSA will continue to coordinate with the Northway Village regarding any potential impacts. Under the no action alternative, there would be local, long-term, moderate effects on tribal resources due to continued access restrictions to traditional and modern fishing camps in the vicinity of the existing LPOE. BMPs include avoidance of the Alaska Military Highway telephone and telegraph line to the maximum extent feasible during the design phase and ongoing coordination with the Northway Village regarding potential impacts. Next slide, Kevin. With alternative 1, there would be beneficial, regional, short-term, and moderate environmental justice effects due to jobs created in the Southeast Fairbanks census area that could employ members of EJ communities and from the potential purpose of materials from local vendors. There would be local, short and long-term, moderate effects on tribal subsistence activities during construction and LPOE operations due to continued access restrictions at traditional fishing locations. Finally, there would be local, short-term, minor effects to the health and safety of children living in the on-site housing due to construction-related disturbances. Under the no action alternative, there would be local, long-term moderate effects on subsistence activities due to continued access restrictions to traditional and modern fishing camps in the vicinity of the existing LPOE. To minimize adverse environmental justice effects, all contractors employed by GSA would be subject to background check, and only passing candidates would work on the project. Also, it is assumed that CBP officers and their families would be provided with alternative housing and so would be present on site for only a small portion of the overall construction period. Next slide, Kevin. Under alternative 1, regional short-term negligible socioeconomic effects would be expected on population and housing due to the influx of workers to temporary construction work camps and housing. There would be beneficial regional short-term moderate effects on sourcing materials locally and the possible hiring of local workers from the Southeast Fairbanks census area during the construction phase. There would be beneficial regional short-term minor effects on unemployment rates during the construction phase. Finally, there would be beneficial regional long-term negligible effects on trade due to the new LPOE's improved vehicle processing capabilities. Under the no action alternative, local long-term negligible effects would be expected on population and housing due to the lack of housing for CBP officers. No effects to the economy or trade would occur. Next slide, Kevin. Under alternative 1, there would be local short-term minor effects on the accessibility and quality of recreational resources due to construction-related activities. There would be local long-term negligible effects on the accessibility and quality of recreational resources due to operational activities such as noise from the indoor firing range and the helipad. Under the no action alternative, there would be local long-term negligible effects on recreation due to operational activities. To minimize effects to recreation, the indoor firing range would be designed to minimize noise pollution. Next slide, Kevin. Under alternative 1, there would be local short-term minor effects to visual resources due to the presence of construction-related activities, vehicles, and equipment. There would also be local long-term minor effects to visual resources due to the construction of additional developed areas such as buildings and inspection lanes. Under the no action alternative, there would be local long-term negligible effects to visual resources due to the continued presence of existing LPOE structures. Next slide. Under alternative 1, there would be local short-term minor effects from construction noise and local short-term moderate effects from blasting noise and vibrations during the construction period. There would also be local long-term negligible effects from noise during LPOE operations. Under the no action alternative, there would be local long-term negligible effects from noise during operations. To minimize noise and vibration effects, BMPs would be followed, including relocating current Alcan LPOE residents to temporary housing and development of a blasting plan. Next slide. Under alternative 1, there would be local short-term negligible effects of solid and hazardous waste and materials from demolition and construction activities. There would be local long-term negligible effects during operations due to increase of solid waste and potential spills with the new hazardous materials or hazmat canopy and from the indoor firing range. The new fuel storage area would have beneficial site-specific long-term minor effects from reducing the potential for fuel leaks and spills. Under the no action alternative, the continued use of hazardous materials and the generation of solidus and hazardous waste at the LPOE would have local, long-term negligible effects. GSA would implement a suite of BMPs and mitigation measures to minimize solid and hazardous waste effects detailed in the DEIS, including adhering to the national emission standards for hazardous air pollutant BMPs for demolition, following hazardous waste separation and disposal BMPs, and implementing a spill response plan to address potential spills. Next slide, please. Under alternative 1, there would be regional short-term minor effects to climate change during construction-related activities. Short-term construction effects on climate would have an incremental, albeit minor, long-term effect on climate as well. There would be beneficial, regional, long-term negligible effects to climate change during operations due to the modernization and updated infrastructure at the LPOE. Lastly, there would be regional, long-term, moderate effects on the LPOE itself due to climate change. Under the no action alternative, there would be regional, long-term, negligible effects to climate change due to the continued generation of vehicle emissions. There would be regional, long-term, moderate effects on the LPOE from climate change. Improvements to energy efficiency and building insulation would mitigate the effects of the updated LPOE on climate change due to expected decreases in fuel usage for heating residential and other LPOE buildings. Additionally, the modernization and enhanced layout and updated infrastructure could reduce greenhouse gas emissions. Next slide, Kevin. GSA is soliciting comments on the draft EIS and will consider all comments received during the development of the final EIS. The draft EIS is currently available on the GSA website, and the final EIS will be posted there when it is ready, which is tentatively scheduled for August 2024. A link to the project website is at the bottom of this slide. If GSA chooses to proceed with alternative 1, GSA would select an architectural/engineering firm and initiate the design phase by July 2025 to be completed in November 2026. Construction would be projected to begin in March 2026 and would be completed by July 2029. These are estimated timeframes that are subject to change. GSA would provide project updates via the GSA website. And with that, we will now begin the public comment session. Next slide, Kevin. This public comment period provides you with the opportunity to provide your feedback on the draft EIS. GSA values your input and the opportunity to hear your thoughts and concerns. Your feedback is important. GSA will clarify anything presented in this presentation relating to the project, the NEPA process, or opportunities for public participation. There are a few ways for you to submit your comments. You may mail or email written comments to GSA at the addresses listed on this slide. We ask that you include the email subject line, Alcan LPOE Draft EIS. Comments must be received or postmarked by April 11th, 2024 to be considered. And the mailing address is attention Aaron Evanson, that's AARON EVANSON, Capital Project Manager, U.S. General Services Administration, 1301 A Street, Tacoma, Washington, 98402. You may also submit your written comments via the Zoom chat feature or verbally during the commenting session. We will provide instructions on a subsequent slide. For press inquiries only, please use the contact information provided on the slide. Next slide. We will review how to make verbal comments first, and then how to submit written comments using the Zoom chat feature or on the comment form provided if you are at the meeting in person. If you are making a verbal comment, please say and spell your first and last name and indicate any affiliation you have, if you have one, before you begin your comment. Please be respectful of participants and presenters, and please refrain from the use of crass or vulgar language or directing comments towards a single person or group. To make sure as many commenters as possible get the chance to speak today, we are limiting each person's comments to 3 minutes. There is a countdown timer you can see now at the top of the screen to show you how much time you have left. Please be respectful of other people's time and wrap up your comments when prompted. If folks go over their allotted time, we may need to cut the microphone to ensure that there is adequate time for everyone to speak. If you are on the phone and cannot see the screen we are sharing, we will give you a 30-second verbal warning, but you may want to keep your own timer so you aren't surprised by the time limit. We would like everyone who wants to speak to have the opportunity to do so at least once. If time allows, participants who have already commented may speak again after all commenters have had an initial opportunity to speak. For those who wish to provide a written comment via the Zoom platform, please use the Zoom chat feature at the bottom of your screen. Type your comment and click send. If you are attending the meeting in person, please use the comment form provided. GSA will acknowledge receipt of written comments by reading them aloud. A recording of the meeting will be made and your comments will be included in the project record. We will now be calling on people to provide verbal public comments. Please first introduce yourself and spell your first and last name and indicate any affiliation you may have. Once you are done spelling your name, your 3 minutes will begin. We will start with those attending the meeting in person, which will be facilitated by GSA's Aaron Evanson. When you are called on, please step forward in the room so that you can be seen by virtual meeting participants. After in-person participants have provided their comments, we will proceed to accepting comments from virtual meeting participants. Virtual participants may raise their hands by clicking the button under Reactions at the bottom of the screen that says Raise Hand and looks like a hand. We will call on you by name when it is your turn to speak, and the host will unmute you. When you are done speaking, the host will once again mute you. All righty.
All right, we are off mute. Does anybody have any questions? Comments, concerns? Anything you'd like to address right now?
Can you specify local art?
Okay, so actually first, so the microphone is actually over here. So when I'm doing this and to make sure that we get a record of things, if I can use this, and I have you come up here a little bit and actually speak more towards the camera, because this is a very good question. Sorry. Yep, go ahead. But this, that's probably good. So first name, last name.
Gary Thomas, and GARYTHOMAS. And my question is, can you specify what local hire is?
Did you get that, Kevin?
Yep. Thank you
Alright.
so much, Mr. Thomas.
All right, so the local hire is going to be dictated by the GSA procurement rules for the design build contract. We do set aside hub zone, which is particularly very specific areas of the state and of the country that are considered lower impoverished. And so there are, even attached to this contract, which we don't exactly know how much it's going to be yet, there are certain percentages that are assigned to that contract. That is all based on the amount of the contract itself. And we don't know that yet, but as far as the question is concerned more broadly, as far as local hire is concerned, we will publish all of that information. I can make sure that everybody here gets it as we go through the procurement process itself. So I don't know yet.
To me, local hire is like North Way,
Hmm.
you know, it's close to the board.
I think what we talk about as local hire is the Fairbanks.
Yeah,
Census
you
district.
specify that.
Mhm. Yeah, I think that's what it is, but I don't know. I can find that out. And I can get back.
You're the project managers.
Yeah.
You can get, you could have.
Everything to Daryl, like, yeah, everything that I get is from this local hire, I can give to Daryl and he can disseminate.
Okay.
Absolutely. Daryl, the other round? He was. Skipped out on us.
Hey, Aaron, I'm not sure about everyone else. I could understand the speaker. I had a harder time understanding you because your back was to us as you
Oh,
were.
I'm sorry. So Leon, the question was about local hire, and Gary had mentioned that it was specific. His specific question was basically he considers local hire to be Northway Village, and I told him that for our purposes, the local hire would be the the Fairbanks census district.
Right.
But as we progress through the procurement of the project, there is specific hub zone requirements that we have, and SBA requirements, all that kind of stuff associated with the hiring of it. And I don't know what those are yet because we have not finalized the procurement process.
Right.
So I told him we would be updating the Northway Village Council on how that progresses as we go through, especially since they are a cooperating agency in this.
Thank you for that summary, Aaron. I could hear you a lot better this time.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I'll make sure to face the microphone next time. Please.
Okay, next. So my name is Robert Sattler, Robert, and then Sattler. I'm a career employee of Tanana Chiefs Conference. It's the regional service provider of Alaska Native people in the interior, including Northway. Northway is one of the members of Tanana Chiefs Conference. And I probably have more than 3 minutes, so I'm just going to go. I don't think we have anyone else behind me, but I'd like to begin by saying that I'd like to recognize Lorraine Titus. Lorraine's sitting here in the audience. She's the elder advisor to the tribal council here in Northway. And she was involved with the early meeting that Aaron and I and some others had here in her offices a couple of months ago, and sort of sorted out a few issues, local issues here. And just want to recognize Lorraine as one of the leaders here in Northway, very important Native leader in the Northway community. And for what I say here, I work at Tanana Chiefs. These are sort of observations I'm going to comment on about NEPA issues that have come to mind for me in regard to this project. But really, Lorraine and other people here locally have sort of a precedent in their views and perspectives on this project. And I intend to continue collaborating with Lorraine through the process, and to say, really what that meeting we had sort of led to getting Northway recognized as a cooperating agency in this project. And I want to say, for me as a professional at TCC, I appreciate the GSA effort to do that, to get the Northway community involved in this project. I'll come back to that toward the end. So several things. One, TCC provided some comments previously. There's been one long-term issue there in land access. There's a native allotment that was applied there where the custom station is. It's certainly irreconcilable, but I just want to recognize that as an ongoing issue. I don't think the GSA could do anything unless they have some surplus property and maybe do a land exchange of some sort, but nobody's pursued that. But I don't think it's really a feasible outcome, but it's something to take into consideration. Something that Tanana Chiefs, through consulting with Northway, commented on, and some other professional anthropologists, or some of the access issues around the station. But there were some subsistence camps, whitefish camps in the area. It's already been mentioned in the presentation here that there have been some issues about access to those subsistence camps. Lorraine could comment a lot more. I'm not going to ask her to do that here at this meeting, but that's one issue to keep in mind. considering the history of the Northway people here, their traditional lands, ancestral lands, this beautiful country here. You know, one of the subjects that's come up a couple of times now in discussions is that in the design of the new station, there perhaps ought to be maybe not just some, but a substantive effort into considering some kind of an interpretive center, you know, that could elaborate on the Alaska Native history in this beautiful country and their distinguished existence in this boreal forest. It's a really remarkable story about the Alaska Native people, but also it could include historical aspects of the construction of the Alaska Highway, which in itself we all know is a remarkable engineering feat that took place in the mid-1940s. It's left some contaminated site issues today we're all aware of, but you know, really a remarkable engineering feat. And then another issue that could be really emphasized is just the survey of the 141st longitudinal border between Canada and the US. I mean, that survey team that did that work is really remarkable story of establishing the border between Canada and the US. And our surveyors that could say this, our contemporary surveyors have gone back to some of those monuments, they're like within centimeters of accuracy. Those guys were taking measurements off of stars. It's really amazing story. So anyways, a cultural center of some sort. Now I would suggest that the group here, the NEPA group, begin conversations with Northway about some of those aspects. And they're working in collaboration with Northway natives and also the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Refuge, who has a visitor center very close to the border. One of the things that Ted is working on is trying to get an electrical line to Northway from Tok. And people at TCC have made comments about potentially extending that electrical line if it's ever established up to the U.S. Customs Station. Two more things here, climate change. I think beyond just the climate aspects of the facility, the footprint of the facility, people I talk to continually discuss that with climate change, that there will be more people moving to Alaska. The gentleman here at the Customs Station, and maybe he's already seen some trends of that. People moving up to Alaska to escape the heat from the mid-continental states. So I'd suggest you use that as a demographic factor in your further analysis. Then the last thing, which I mentioned to Lorraine, I know she stepped out here, but you know, we know from what you said here today and my conversations with Aaron that the facility here will involve a major federal contractor here at the border for several years. And these villages in the Upper Tanana, they have little projects in village infrastructure that end up, you know, they get funding, but the majority of their funding ends up going into mobilizing and demobilizing little projects. So with this major federal contractor here at the border, you know, I suggest that you explore opportunities about perhaps integrating some of the work at the border with some maybe small community projects that would really attribute some relief in a sense of environmental justice or infrastructure, improving the human environment here in the Upper Tanana subregion of the TCC area. And don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting to rebuild a village, nothing like that. Although I think what you're doing is basically like building a new village up there at the border. So that's sort of an interesting concept to think about. So anyways, other things that I have to say is that thanks for giving me the opportunity to this conference.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.
Got you?
I just stand over here and face you. That way.
Perfect.
Yeah.
There we go.
Sean Bayless, S-H-A-W-N. Last name Bayless, B-A-Y-L-E-S-S. Refuge manager for Tetland Refuge. This is Lorraine's back. Lorraine.
Yep, I'm back. I'm listening to you.
I've got quite a few things I'm going to comment on. I'm going to provide a written comment as well, but mostly for my partners here. They might be interested in what I'm concerned about or questions I need answered. One is the lack of Section 810 analysis in your NEPA. I don't know if you're aware of those need to happen under Title 8 of a NEPA. So okay. I would look into that. I can help out with that if need be, but that's important. Even though with the new alternative, there's not as much of an impact as alternative 2 was.
Yeah.
So there's a lot less, but we still have to do an 810 analysis.
What is maintaining?
It's basically determining what impacts the federal project will have on subsistence hunting, gathering, fishing. And there's a way to do that and call it a section 810 analysis.
Okay.
Okay, so I would recommend you do that as well as everything else in your NEPA. So I heard, and I've read the EIS, and it mentions acquisition of Fish and Wildlife Service land. So when you say acquisition, I need to know, what do you mean by that? Is that a transfer, a deed transfer, or is that an easement, a right of way? It makes a big difference in how I'm going to comment.
As of right now, the only way that is feasible that we have discussed with Fish and Wildlife is a long-term permit.
Okay.
So it is, Fed-to-Fed transfers are not acceptable through this. And we have had those discussions with the Fish and Wildlife Directorate. And so the only way that we would ever be able to work on that land or develop that land is through a permit process.
I've never heard of an easement or a right of way that does so much to Fish and Wildlife Service property, where you're basically destroying the topography of the property to make it happen. So I'm gonna have to do a compatibility determination, determine if we can do that. There's never been one like this, so my knee-jerk reaction is this is probably not gonna be compatible with the mission of the refuge system. So just so you know, I am gonna comment on that in the written form.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm. 0.3 wetland acres. Where are those located in relation to the current?
We're still doing a wetland determination right now, but that 0.3 acres is down on our. It's not actually on the
State or
no, it's not on state.
Okay. And I got the deadline.
Yeah, I mean, just to clarify just a little bit of that, right now, we need to keep a 100-foot buffer zone between our development and any potential or delineated wetland.
100 feet?
Yeah, and so I believe as of right now, we are outside of that boundary. We're well away from the 100-foot point. But depending on where the wetland delineation actually comes back, especially for some of the small ponds and tributaries associated with Scotty Creek, that may infringe on some of that.
Okay.
So that's why we're
Once you
actually
identify those, we'll be able to take a look at that.
absolutely.
And see if there's any kind of mitigation. Or something we can do. Okay.
Yep.
The other thing, and Bob mentioned the like some kind of a interpretive place. We have a kiosk right at the border that I'd recommend, and I'd like to include, upper town, Athabascans and all kinds of stuff that we can throw in there. But also, I would like to see some kind of, if we did do that, include a description of what aquatic invasives can do to the state. That's a big deal. We have a team there all summer long, inspecting boats and things like that. But the people come in, they pull into the kiosk, and if it's a covered all-weather kiosk, they can get out, stretch their legs, have a bathroom there, they're in the weeds like they do now.
Right.
And then they can read all about aquatic invasives, the effects of that to Alaska.
Okay.
That's important. Is there anything else, Travis? I'd like to recognize Travis, David. He works for me at the refuge.
Thanks for coming, Travis.
It was, project was phased out construction, so 2 years.
That's correct.
Is there a plan as to how we're going to reduce it basically easy to come in an area and two of that whole construction, they can embed themselves. So plan as far as if they do start showing up, who calls.
That makes a lot of sense. I actually don't have that information. But those.
sorry.
Recapture the question, Aaron.
Yeah, thank you, Rick. We couldn't hear that on our end.
Oh, no problem. So Travis asked the question about the phasing of the facility itself, like the construction. During that phasing of those activities, it would be very possible for invasive species to come in especially Flora, I'm assuming, mostly Flora to establish itself on the disturbed land. And Travis's question is if we have plans in place to bring people in or to actually make sure that those invasive species do not flourish in that disturbed area that's not yet developed. And so my answer is no, we don't yet, but that is definitely part of the best management practices that will be developed through the permitting process in, as we go through as we finalize the design, as we build the phasing plans themselves, and as we have a better idea of what the massing of the site will be. And then, first you got to get the massing, and then you have to start the phasing process. And that's when you can actually figure out the BMPs and submit those for permit. So that's typically the life cycle of those kind of activities. All right.
Aaron,
Yes, sir.
unless
Yes,
there's
sir.
anyone else in the audience that has any questions or comments, we have a comment in the online chat. Max
there more?
Frey.
Actually, can I make sure everybody's done here first?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, cool. Thank you, Kevin. Elmer, did you have anything? No? Okay.
Not a comment, but I guess we could answer this now or later, but I'm just wondering, if you GSA that is, this project you're looking at.
Yeah, come on up, Bob. Come on up. Yeah.
I'm gonna pose this question to Aaron. So the project that you have proposed here, is this a unique project within the portfolio? Like, have you done, obviously you work with other remote custom stations, but does this project pose some rather significant challenges compared to others around the country, or is it sort of a routine thing? A routine project. I mean, there's some unique circumstances for sure.
There's
You
absolutely.
now have Northway connected with you to sort of design or to generate a design, totally sympathetic to some of their interests. And, but yet it's a pretty big facility. And, you're obviously modernizing it for
Yes.
customs people for their, not convenience, but their quality of life, so to speak.
It's quality of life.
Locality.
It's mission requirements. It's kind of future proofing more than anything else. Because we finished this facility in '69, and it was, this is a very remote, very harsh environment, and a lot of the housing does not meet very basic livability requirements, but it needs to be updated. It needs better facilities, better everything. The other part of it is that CBP's mission has changed in that time. And so in order to make sure that we're meeting that mission and that we have the facilities that they need in order to do that, like right now, they have all their secondary inspections go to Anchorage. They cannot perform secondary inspections on commercial or vehicle or personal traffic right now. So any secondary inspections, it's not only a hindrance to their operations at Alcan, but it's an inconvenience to the travelers. It's an inconvenience to the commercial aspect of it, because all secondary inspections have to go to Anchorage. And that's one of the aspects of this that we are really hoping to change.
No vehicles, no holding cells, no place to store vehicles, no storage, no.
Right. So those are normal port operations that cannot happen at that port without a modernization.
Yeah, but so recognizing this big contract a lot of things you're gonna bring in. Is that something you're familiar with? Does this pose challenges for that aspect, the whole construction? The facility, or is that?
So this
Members, what you normally do.
well, no, this is not normal, for one. For one, there's only 2 land ports of entry on the entire northern border that actually incorporate housing that are changing in any kind of a way as part of this project. So there's Alcan, and then there is Grand Portage in Minnesota, I believe is where that is. And so those are the only 2 northern ports that are affected by this BIL funding that are actually having housing incorporated into that. So the housing does pose a challenge. The the magnitude of this is much higher than other ports. Not all other ports by any stretch. Linden and Sumas are in Washington State, and those are pretty major projects as well. Port Hill in Idaho, you know, these are all Region 10 GSA projects. They're all fairly large from that standpoint. What makes this unique is its remoteness, the relative lack of skilled labor force in the immediate area that makes mobilization a difficult aspect of this. The
Short seasons
very short seasons that we have for building, absolutely.
and a joint facility.
And then the fact that we're bringing CBSA in as a joint tenant of that port building is unprecedented, actually.
Complicated.
Oh, I know. Yeah, any more complications you want to throw? Like, no,
It should make everything more streamlined.
it will, yes.
For both countries and the two, you know, native entities that you're dealing with.
So I'm just commenting that this will make it more streamlined for those online that couldn't hear. The CBSA, which is Canada, the Canadian Border Protection Service, and CBP, US CBP, integrated into the same port building itself. So that was that comment.
So that's continuing, to have the joint Canadian border.
Yes.
Station.
The whole idea is that we create this, we streamline the functionality of CBSA in that location, we make sure it works well, and then CBSA can demolish Beaver Creek and give that land back to the White River Nation that it's currently sitting on. So there's been decades of contention there for lots of good reasons, for very good reason. And CBSA has been trying to find a different way to do it. But one of the problems is that all the land that's right up to the border as far as Canada is concerned is basically unbuildable. It's all the muskeg and it's the permafrost swamp that they can't build on. So moving the border closer is, you know, from a Canadian standpoint, moving the border station closer was a financial inconsideration. Like they just can't make it work financially. So this has been an amazing opportunity, not only to work with CBP and CBSA together to build this, but it's actually the possibility of this being of our lessons learned on this project being transferred to other LPOEs on the northern border that are relatively remote or small, or you know, there's two border stations that are 100 yards away from each other on the US and Canadian side. Who's to know? We could actually create a situation here that can be used at other border crossing stations to eliminate some of that taxpayer funded, you know, like dual border issues. If there is no issue, why not combine them? So that's a possibility.
So I'm curious, in the design, do you anticipate there will be like a water tunnel cars the trucks go into, like the middle of the winter? Across here, friends of mine across here at 50 below zero. Lorraine can probably tell all kinds of stories about that.
No, we don't have the design set yet. I'm not foreseeing a warm tunnel, but we do not have final designs on the port building itself yet.
Maybe that's something I'll suggest. Warm tunnel for cars, personal cars to go through in the middle of January.
Get some blue lights all the way around it, nice and comfy. Yeah. All right, Kevin, was there any more comments or questions here?
I guess I'll make a comment, only to listen to Rain Titus.
Can you hear Kevin?
Yes, I can hear you faintly.
Okay, Lorraine, could you come up here just a little bit towards the mic? Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Rain Titus. And last name spelled Titus. And I just want to make a comment. I'm just really thankful that, you know, the decision was made to keep the border at the same location. Because I was kind of part of the ones that really didn't want to see, you know, it move because of our cultural lands and stuff that we use for hunting, berry picking, subsistence use and all that. So I'm very grateful that, you know, everybody listened to us and, you know, listened to our concerns about all this, and I'm kind of anxious to see the floor plan as to, you know, what's gonna happen there, and I think just really appreciate that, you know, everything went well to where the border was gonna stay at the same location. Thank you.
Of course.
Yeah.
Thanks for making that comment, Larry. All right, I think we're done on site, Kevin. If you'd like to pull in some of the comments from online or anybody that'd like to come off mute.
Yeah, feel free to cut me off if anyone would like to come off mute and give a comment, but there's one written comment in the chat from Max Frey. He said he had a question about the RFP process for this project post EIS. Will the GSA be pursuing a two-step design build method for awarding the design?
Good question, Max. As of right now, we are a two-step design build process. So there will be a request for information and a request for proposals. Or the RFQ, I'm sorry, the request for qualifications, and then a request for proposals. So yes, that's the two-step process. Max, did you want to elaborate on that at all, the question, or did that answer what you needed?
Said in the chat, all good, thank you.
Okay, great. All right, Kevin, I finally was able to pull up the chat and I can see it as well. So if anybody else wants to post anything, please feel free. So Kevin and Leon, I believe we are finished with any on-site questions or comments. I know there will be a couple of written comments that are submitted. If the online questioning is done, how long would you like us to stay online here on site?
Well, I think we have a commitment until 8, don't we? At least in terms of online presence. Jane or anyone, what should they be doing on site?
This is Marshall with GSA. We've typically after the last comment is provided, given about a 10-minute window. So given that the last comment, we just addressed that now, I would say if we wait 7-8 more minutes, we can wrap up if nobody else has any additional comments.
That sounds great, Marshall. Let's do that. I'm gonna leave my mic on mute, but I will have the chat ring online so I can hear that, and I can hear all of the speakers that are joining virtually. So if there's a question that comes up, please just let me know and I will address it as much as I possibly can, but I will be on mute for the next 10 minutes, unless there's a question.
That sounds good. It's 14 after now, so we'll go until 22 after. If we don't hear from anyone, then Leon has some remarks, I guess, to wrap up the presentation.
Sounds good, Marshall.
Hey, this is Rick Rocco. Yeah, I don't know if everyone got all the names in the room that you're in, Aaron. I don't know if I think we need that for the record. I know we can track that who's logged in, but if you just want to capture that so that we can make sure that the team has it for.
I took a roster as people entered the room, Rick. So I have everyone on site here in a written sign-in form that I'll be able to scan and send to solve for integration.
Perfect, thank you.
No problem.
Excellent, thank you. And I switched the screen to the other opportunities for public comments, just in case anyone wants to use one of the other opportunities for comment. Hey,
Hey,
Leon.
this is Marshall again with GSA. It's been 10 minutes since we had our last comment. So Leon, if you want to go ahead and wrap up. Aaron,
Sure.
we don't have anything else online, Aaron.
Okay, thank you, Marshall. I think we're done here too. So I appreciate it.
Great.
Thank you for joining GSA's public meeting for the Alcan Land Port of Entry expansion and modernization. We are grateful for your comments and input. Since there are no additional comments at this time, we will end the meeting. Thank you very much for your time and involvement.